Hey guys, it's Krystal. I get a lot of questions asking about hard-boiled eggs. They're a good source of protein and lots of vitamins and whatnot. I do have chickens, and a lot of people have seen that it's not good to hard-boil farm fresh eggs because the shells are impossible to get off. When I do store-bought eggs and hard-boil them, um, I have a method that is pretty much flawless for me. I know everybody has their own special things they like to do, tips and tricks. I tried it with farm fresh eggs, and I'm able to get decent. Of course, you won't always have perfect ones, but I am able to still do hard boiled eggs the exact same way with great success. So, if this is something that you struggle with, let me tell you so I've already hard boiled these. What I do is put eggs in the pan, fill it up with water. If I'm doing this many, which is probably too much, I fill like almost 2 inches, maybe a little more above the eggs, 2 extra inches of water. As I'm bringing it up to a boil, every few minutes I'll just stir it around a little bit. Since it is a lot more eggs, a lot more water, it'll take longer to come to a boil. And you don't want the eggs to sit just like this because they'll get like not burnt, but almost like a burnt spot on the bottom where the bottom of the egg is touching the burner. I learned that the hard way, so every once in a while I'll just stir. Once it comes to a boil, I will cover this, turn off the stove, but leave the pot covered on the warm burner. So the heat's still there, the eggs are still going. It's at a rolling boil, but again, turn off the heat and cover it. The eggs will continue to cook. And I'll put a timer on for 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the size of the eggs. These are mostly small and medium because my new batch of chickens started laying recently. So these are mostly smalls and mediums. So I went for 8 minutes, and we shall see how this goes. So after the timer went off, I used this because I don't like to make a bunch of dishes dirty. I dumped this into the sink and as much water as I can that was boiling, and I fill it back up with cool water, let it sit for a few minutes, dump it again, as much water as I can out of it, and let it sit for a few more minutes. So maybe 10 to 15 minutes total, depending. Again, if the eggs are larger, I'll increase that time just so it sits in the cooler water longer. You can, of course, put a bunch of ice cubes. When I started doing eggs, I always did that. I think it's kind of a pain right now and unnecessary. So this is what works for me. After that 10 minutes or so, I drain all the water again. Sometimes there's a little bit left. I don't think I have much today. Maybe some drops. And then this is what I'm going to do. So I forgot to mention, before bringing to a boil, I add a little salt and distilled white vinegar. So the salt may or may not help. Some people say it helps with peeling. It's just habit. I don't know. If it helps a little bit, I just add salt. Maybe it'll soak up and flavor a little bit. The vinegar is actually super important. I would not leave that out because what will happen is sometimes you will get eggs. I don't know if you could see this in here, but you will get eggs that have a slight crack in it, especially if you have chickens. Sometimes chickens will just peck their eggs or somebody else's eggs. It'll get stepped on or whatever, and so there will be a little crack in it. What the vinegar does is, as it boils, excuse me, without vinegar, you'll have whites of the eggs escaping out of that crack, and it looks really weird and yucky as it boils and cooks the egg. The vinegar just keeps, I don't know the science, you can Google it, it just keeps all of the egg on the inside of the shell, even though the egg's cracked. So now I never, ever, ever do these without distilled white vinegar. So that's while you're boiling it. Now we've dumped out all the water, cooled it down a couple different times. My secret ingredient is oil. When I first started, I always did olive oil, but oil is expensive. I thought I would try it. Olive oil, we get really good quality. I thought I would try the cheap vegetable oil, so I did that for a while. We've had canola oil, and now this is corn oil. We've tried all of these other oils, and the result is still the same. So use whatever kind of cooking oil you have on hand. And I'm pretty low. I might finish this off for funsies. Okay. So just to drizzle, like I said, I'm about out, so I'm just going to put like all of this in here. I've done a little more oil than this accidentally and had the same result. I've done a little less oil and had the same result. The key is just to get the oil. I don't know why, but the eggs are still warm. You don't want them cold, because just like when meat cools down, like if you put chicken, for example, in the refrigerator, and then you bring it out, you try to reheat it or eat it cold, it's like tougher because the proteins kind of like squeeze together. Again, I don't know the exact technical explanation, but you can Google that, explanation. But there's something about this, when the eggs cool, the shells also have that reaction and they get very tight on the whites, and then it's difficult to peel the shell off, especially with farm fresh eggs, because it seems like the shells are thicker, healthier, and so it's very difficult, and then you're peeling off half your egg with the shell, and it's just not fun. So I keep them warm, definitely not cold, definitely not too hot to touch. You want them right in the middle, so they're warm, but not too warm, because if they're too warm, they'll just fall apart. It's really gross. So the more you do this, the easier it'll get, but this is what I do. So I sprinkled the oil. Now what I'm going to do is make some noise. I'm going to shake it left and right, like north, south, east, west kind of thing, and bounce it a little bit. What that's going to do is just get the oil around all of the eggshells, and as I'm shaking it, the eggs will hit off of each other and the sides of the pan and start to crack themselves. And then also in that shaking, the oil will get on the inside of the shells between the whites and the shell itself, and it'll like basically peel itself. So we'll see. They've been sitting, I don't know if they're a little too cooled down, but I'll show you what I mean. Okay, you ready? Okay, so I went ahead and shook it. We might shake it a little bit again later, but I just wanted to show you. Some people will put a lid on this. When I started doing this method, I did have a lid on it and shake it, you know, a little more vigorously. But then I was noticing like the shells were like piercing the egg, and so they weren't that pretty, like soft, clear egg white. So shake it, but again, find the balance in between, not too much so you don't ruin the egg white, the final product. So you can see this is cracked here, and it basically peeled itself. A lot of times it will come off, like the whole shell will come off in one piece. So just gently, I'm not sure if you could see how it's separated a bit. You just gently peel back on that, and it really is like barely, I'm trying to watch to see, it's really barely on because that oil, and again the eggs are still warm, so it just comes right off. So see, it's like picture perfect. There's no dents, no crazy, you didn't rip off half the egg, which is important, especially when they're smaller like this, from newly laying chickens. But I hope this helps. Again, it's like super quick, super easy, and the shaking really helps that oil get down in there, if you can see. And they really essentially peel themselves. I have had some when I was shaking it more vigorously, and the shells literally came off without me touching the eggs. So find a happy medium. I would encourage you to start with smaller batches. I do these often, so I always do 2 dozen at a time, or 18, 36, just depends on what pan I'm using, what event or whatever. But see, just absolutely perfect. There's no dents, nothing wrong with it, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So if you're not having like something you have to showcase your eggs, not a big deal. If you get in a hurry, just vigorously shake. But again, this eliminates waste. You're not peeling off some of that egg white with the shells. So I hope this helps somebody. Super foolproof. I encourage you to try this. I know the internet has a million options for hard boiling eggs the best way. Try this. I have never gone back. This is the only way I do it now. It's so easy and foolproof, especially when I do 2 or 3 dozen at a time every time. I'll never go back personally. So okay, excuse the lighting. It's pretty wonky in my kitchen. These are all like very white eggs. I'm not sure why they're picking up orangey yellow. So I peeled all the eggs. What I did was then dump this pot that had the eggshells and stuff in it, dumped it, washed it out, and then from this container that they were in, I grabbed the eggs one by one, ran them under cold water, and just lightly washed them with my fingers to get all the small little pieces of shell off, and of course the oil. I did forget to mention, once you're done peeling the oil, or peeling the eggs, the oil is actually very good for your skin, like your hands, nails, cuticles, whatever. So there's an added bonus. But anyway, washed them one by one, put them in here just to double check. They are not perfect. There are some imperfections in here, little by little, you can see, but overall super quick, was in a hurry, just peeling really quickly, and compared to a lot of the other ways, amazing. Again, like I said, I will never go back another way. Of course, there's all kinds of things you can do, like an egg cooker, an Insta Pot, different things, but when it comes to peeling, try this and let me know what you think. Please give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped somebody. If there's anything else in the kitchen that you struggle with, put it in the comment section and I'll see, maybe we could do a video about it or help each other out. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.